So this is 5 reasons why Ezra is going to survive Star Wars Rebels and be alive during the timeline of the original trilogy, possibly even beyond that. I'm going to start off with number 5, why it's too obvious that Ezra would die at the end. First off, it's a terrible, tried and true TV cliche to kind of have this dramatic ending where you're kind of expecting him to turn to the dark side and die at the very, very end of the show. And I think they're going to break from that because it's starting to become more common in television. Not only that, but we've also seen him kind of be tempted by the dark side already with the Sith holocron and with Maul. It's something that they're really painting a picture for, and I expect them to try to surprise us at the end of the show. So it's too obvious. He's mirrored Anakin Skywalker's relationship with Obi-Wan as his relationship to Kanan, and I think what's going to be more likely is that he will survive and he'll be more powerful because of his temptation with the dark side, that it's going to help him grow. Now he knows his enemy better. All right, so that was number 5. It's too obvious. Number 4 is that we do know that certain people survive. We know the ship, we know the Ghost survives. We know, we hear them in Rogue One. Some minor spoilers, but we hear them page General Syndulla. So it's either Cham or Hera. It's probably Hera. It's almost certainly Hera. So we know Hera survives. We know Chopper survives. We see Chopper. We see the Ghost flying through space, shooting. So there's obviously a crew on that ship. You're not going to go to battle with just Hera, right? So there's obviously some crew. Ezra may or may not have been there in the battle during the battle at Rogue One. So he may have been on there. If not, then somebody else did. But it's not like the entire crew is going to die at the end of Rebels. We kind of have some confirmation of that already. So that was number 4. We know that some people already survive. So number 3, and this is a big one. So Ezra is getting guidance, right? Not just guidance from Kanan, but he's communing with Yoda. So we've seen him talk to Yoda. Yoda's given him advice. Yoda told him to go to Malachor. Yoda helped him get his crystal. Yoda's been going back and forth with Ezra through the Force, through visions. He's communicating with him long distance. It's not through a Force ghost, but it's through something else. So Yoda's giving him guidance. Yoda's not going to steer him wrong. Yoda's going to do everything he can to help Ezra succeed. And with somebody like Yoda in your corner, you're almost certain to do well, right? So that's my number 3. My number 2 is probably the most controversial, so I'm sure some of you will disagree here, but hear me out before you dismiss this. My number 2 is called There Is Another. So in Empire Strikes Back, Luke is getting ready to fly away from Dagobah, and as he leaves, Obi-Wan says, "That boy is our last hope," and then Yoda replies, "There is another." Now, at the time, it was pretty obvious. It was at the time it was a mystery, but during the time of the original trilogy and all throughout the 80s and the 90s and stuff, everybody was like, "Oh, well, he's talking about Leia," because it gets revealed that Leia is his sister. But now we know in what is canon right now that Leia does not go on to become a Jedi. So that was not the plan. I mean, that may have been that's kind of what they wanted to leave open-ended at the end of the Return of the Jedi in 1983. But now Leia has become a general, right? She stayed on being, a politician, and she's gone to become a general. So There Is Another could be retconned to be referring to Ezra, and I think that's what they're going to do. I think that's going to be the big mind screw here. The aha moment is that now when you watch Empire Strikes Back and Yoda says there is another, he's talking about Ezra, who he has been in communion with. Yoda knows, because don't forget, as every new story Disney releases is adding more and more, filling up the original trilogy we already know. So in the current timeline, Yoda knows about Ezra. Yoda is aware of Ezra. So for him to say there is another, why would he be talking about Leia, who has had no Force training whatsoever? Nothing. You already hear the line about they're too old to begin the training. Well, at this point, Ezra has, had been trained and has been trained for years and years. So Ezra, and also is very powerful. So Ezra is, I'm Ezra is who Yoda is talking about with the line, "There is another." And my number 5 reason is, or my number 1, number 5, 5th on my list, but the number 1 reason, last on the countdown, is the future stories of Star Wars. So Lucasfilm can't keep just doing Skywalker-based stories. Now, we've seen them do Rogue One. We know that they're going to do some anthology films, but there's only so many anthology films they can do before it totally feels like they're just milking the franchise. And they're not going to want to just milk the franchise. So one of the things that I think they're going to do is, after they do Episode 9, I think they're going to have to start looking at a different direction to do series of films that aren't Skywalker-based series. So I think they can take it in a direction of Ezra's direction, which would still have the same starting point that Star Wars has, but it will take it in a different direction. Perhaps Ezra goes to the outer edges of the galaxy in search of something. Maybe Thrawn goes out that way, and maybe Thrawn gets sent away, and Ezra has to go combat him. And it's in a part of the galaxy that's unrelated to Endor, and where the battles are going on in Return of the Jedi. Maybe he's somewhere totally different, fighting a completely separate war, while it still has implications, because maybe Thrawn's got to go back and rally up more forces and come back with 100 more Star Destroyers, and Ezra is stopping all of that. And this is just one speculation, but Ezra, if he has children, or if he starts training people of his own, and maybe they're not Jedi, could start a whole new series of stories for Disney to do. Plus, Taylor Gray is young. He could do live action movies. Even if it's not for 10 or 20 years, he will still be of a great age for them to take this off on a tangent. So that is my number 1 reason, is the future stories. Unfortunately, it's kind of financially motivated, but that's the way the cookie crumbles, and that's kind of life. Plus, I think it would be very cool to see stories about Ezra and maybe the children of Ezra. So let me know what you think. Do you think Ezra is going to survive? Do you share my optimism that we were going to see more stories about the future of Ezra after the conclusion of Star Wars Rebels? Or do you think they're going to maybe leave Ezra's fate undecided, and maybe leave you wondering when Rebels concludes, kind of like they did with Ahsoka? So let me know what you think, and if you want to see more, man, keep subscribe and give a thumbs up and leave comments, and I'd love to hear it. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.